Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. We are content experts. Let your voice be heard. And we're back with another episode of Voices. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. And today's guest, I have Mr. Alexis Mena. Thank you for being a part of today's interview. Before I go on and introduce Mr. Mena, I just want to read his bio so you can find out more about the work that he's been doing throughout the years. Alexis Mena is a curandero who identifies as Afro-Taino, two-spirited, multidisciplinary artist born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn. For the past 8 years, has focused on facilitating programming with a focus on culturally centered urban farming, nutrition, and the culinary arts, and public art with the Brooklyn Museum, the Mokada, Groundswell, and dozens of institutions throughout New York, Massachusetts, California, Japan, and Holland. Since 2010, Alexis has organized several placemaking projects that range from creation of 4 community gardens, 2 school gardens, culinary arts workshops, skill shares, community murals, professional skill development trainings, co-organized several civil actions centered around food equity, social justice, and economic justice for people of color and other marginalized populations. So, you've been doing great work in the community for some time now. Thank you for your work. So without further ado, please tell me about the work that you do and explain the term curandero and also Afro-Taino.
Yeah, so curanderos are the Latinx word for witch doctor or medicine person. And so my family comes from the tradition of using plants as medicine, whether it be through food making, whether it be through medicine making, so creating tinctures, salves, teas, poultices, ways of using the environment and the gifts of the planet around us as a way of healing ourselves. So I've been fortunate enough to be born into a family who carries this tradition. I am of a generation, you know, my parents migrated here from Haiti and DR, and unfortunately they had to do what they had to do in order to survive, so they weren't able to keep up the work. But I am privileged enough, and they have worked hard enough to allow me to be in a position where I can now use that knowledge that I've accumulated through my grandfather, through my grandmother, and through my ancestors, to be able to bring that back to my community and help us heal or find healing for ourselves.
Fascinating work, fascinating work.
Yeah.
So you describe yourself as multidisciplinary, a multidisciplinary artist.
Correct.
Please tell us more about that term. In other words, what forms of art do you utilize in order to inform, empower, and support the community that you work with? You mentioned East New York and other communities.
Absolutely. So part of that is actually in the question that I didn't get to, which answering, which was my identity as Afro-Taino person. So I identify as Afro-Taino and two-spirited because I was born into this society and I was assigned male at birth. And the matrix of gender is not in alignment with my spirituality or my lineage. In my lineage of Afro-Tainos, meaning that I am black and I am indigenous to the island of Haiti, which is now known as Haiti and Dominican Republic, we had several genders beyond just the two system, male and female binary. And so I'm outside of that binary. I am choosing to exist in this world as a whole person that acknowledges both the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and the divine child inside of me. And so that is true through my work. That is true through how I choose to bring that into educational spaces, schools and community centers. I talk about that often simply because, you know, a lot of the men around me, especially in black and brown communities, are born into very toxic situations that cause more toxicity, cause all kinds of trauma and all kinds of abuse, simply because they're not allowed to. One, they were born into a system of patriarchy and misogyny that has built them to be something that they are not, and so that they perpetuate the same violence and the same cycles that they were born into. And so I'm not excusing anyone's behavior. I'm not saying that these men are angels. I'm saying that they haven't been given the opportunity to understand themselves better and who they are and the power that they bring into this world, because we are all caught up in different levels of arrested development and cognitive dissonance that is keeping us from being our authentic selves. And so my work focuses on bringing that forward for people, first for myself, because I cannot heal anyone until I heal myself completely, and that is still a lifelong process. And so being honest and transparent enough with other people so that they can see that this is a journey that we all get to take together. And so as a interdisciplinary artist, it's funny because I've been told I do too much my entire life. I'm like, oh, you're a jack of all trades. You know, I'm an artist. I do mural work. I do canvas, fine art. But I'm also an urban farmer. I come from a farming community in Haiti and Dominican Republic. And so my family has been working the land most of my life, and or rather they have come from a lineage that does that type of work, and I've chosen to pick that back up. I've chosen to then use that knowledge to bring into the schools. So I teach urban farming, or urban agriculture rather, nutrition and culinary arts. I'm a certified community chef with Just Foods and NEBCO. And so what that basically means, a community chef is someone who goes into community centers, goes into doctors' offices, goes into public spaces and interacts with people of marginalized communities to teach them how to cook better. So I do pop-up cooking sessions or you know, food sessions. One, to feed the people. I'm very big on feeding people, but two, to help them rediscover food. You know, today we eat we eat our feelings, we eat our depression, we eat all kinds of things. We don't eat for enlightenment. We don't eat for health. We don't eat for spirit. And so, you know, people even look at me crazy sometimes when I say, what do you mean eat for spirit? You know, like, how can food affect your spirit? Food affects every single part of you, you know, like everything that you consume, your body turns around and turns it into every cell in your body. So you reconstructing yourself on every 7 to 10 years, and you're responsible for that transformation. So I want to give people in my work the tools to transform themselves. And as an artist, I'm privileged enough to put that on display to the public. And so now I am fortunate enough to be walking in that space where people can recognize that I'm doing the work, but I always let them know that they are capable of it just as much as I am.
So speaking of space, and by the way, your work is very fascinating, and you know, and I'm familiar with some of the work that you've been doing, and I certainly want to be a part of the process moving forward as someone who works in Brooklyn with fathers and young men. I mean, I think that this work is very important, as well as the women as well in this work. So you mentioned spaces in your bio. You said place-making projects. What are place-making projects? And give me some examples of those that you've created.
For sure. So placemaking is a term that was coined maybe less than 10 or 15 years ago by urban planners and people who do you know, city planning work. And so what placemaking is it puts a focus on, you know, one of the terms that's used often is making spaces go from livable to lovable. And what it is like creating spaces or allowing the public to have access to spaces that make them feel as if they are living in a place that is thriving, in a place that is beneficial to both them and the community around them. And so I have been fortunate enough, and this is nothing new. You know, Black and brown people have been doing this type of work for ages. You know what I mean? Whether it was Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or the MOVE movement in Philadelphia. You know, we've been organizing, and so this term is not the term is new, but the work is old. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And so this is just a continuance of that work and keeping up with the new terminology that's coming out of academia, so that we have access to some of the funding and some of the things that are, unless you're privy to, you don't have access to. So space making is just a new term, but the work is very old. And so I've been fortunate enough to be a part of several organizing projects where I've built 4 community gardens, 2 school gardens, skate parks with my mentors. I have been fortunate enough to paint a dozen or several dozen murals around the city. With programs like Groundswell and through my own efforts. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I transitioned from doing graffiti to being a muralist and putting that talent towards something positive. And now I get to do that with youth. And I get this summer, an example would be this summer, through Groundswell, I did a project with Sophia Dawson. We were co-lead artists, and Sophia Dawson is an amazing artist that has correspondence with political prisoners, and she basically writes letters to them. And we were able to put a project together through Groundswell and SYEP to hire local Brownsville youth to paint a mural in Brownsville inside of the Brownsville Teen Lounge for Brownsville. So they got paid. We got paid. Everyone was blessed. We got to throw a barbecue. We got to hang out with some seniors from the senior center. We got some feedback from them as to what they wanted to see in that space, and it was a wonderful experience. And what placemaking does, it brings people, it helps people build pride in their space, which is people of color, because we don't necessarily own as much as we should be owning right now. We don't always take pride and ownership over our spaces, so that's a part of what placemaking work does. Help people feel as if they belong, as if they have a sense of community and aren't just occupying space.
Absolutely.
Please.
So, final thoughts. One of the things that I've noticed about your work and in reading your bio and speaking with you, that you've traveled extensively and you've been exposed to various cultures. You mentioned having the being of Haitian lineage, as well as from the Dominican Republic, and all these various places. How has that influenced your culture, your artistic expression, and with respects to your work moving forward? Is there anything that we can look forward to in terms of you and what you're doing, and how can we get in contact with you?
Beautiful, yeah. So like, as far as my lineage goes, like, I didn't know I was Haitian until I was 21, and identity is something that's super important. I didn't feel comfortable identifying as a Black person until I was like 21, 22, because my entire life I was told that you're Latinx or you're Latino and you're not Black. And so I think there's a divisiveness that's been, and colorism has caused a lot of issues amongst the Black and brown communities across the world, across the diaspora, and we need to talk about it. I recently had an exhibition. I'm also a curator, and I recently had an exhibition called Negritude. Negritude is part of a movement that philosophers such as Frantz Fanon, right after the Harlem Renaissance, were talking about, like, what is Black? Do we, as Caribbean Americans, are we allowed to identify as Black? As European Black folk, as European African migrants, are they allowed to identify as Black, or is Black specific to the African American experience? And so I think that we need to identify, or we need to find space to create identities outside of the white gaze, and that's why I do not say that I was not brought up culturally Haitian. I identify as being Haitian because my family transitioned from Haiti to DR during the time of Trujillo, which is a Hitler-type character that happened in DR, and it was for safety. It was for safety and economic reasons. And so for the last 2 generations, we are of Haitian descent. We were brought up as Dominican, with a Dominican identity. And I don't identify as Dominican anymore because in 2015, they passed some terrible policy which strips people of Haitian descent who were born in the Dominican Republic of their nationhood, which is completely illegal. And so until we have that conversation about our identity, I'm choosing to move forward in this world as an Afro-Taino. But to your question in regards to what I'm doing now, I'm centering my work around I am a co-founder of 2 things: entrepreneurship, which is teaching artists how to be entrepreneurs, and that's where I do a lot of skill building and a lot of workshops and skill shares. And Back to Black, which is a farmers and wellness cooperative, and it's a cooperative. I'm building an international network of farms and gardens so that we can build on food sovereignty, so we can build on food justice and economic justice. We're going to be able to feed ourselves, to be able to heal ourselves, and we have to be able to build businesses around those things, because that's what we do. We understand this land, we work this land, and we respect this land. And that's why I think that's missing from the farming system today. There's no respect for the land in itself. And something that's very important to me. So you guys can all join me in the new project that I have going on called Universe City. Universe City will be the first aquaponic large-scale farm and maker lab in Brownsville. We're dedicated to building lighting with a focus on agricultural lighting, photo studio lighting, personal lighting, and fine art lighting. And so we invite all of you with your creative impulses and your Black genius to come by, work with us. We're specializing on helping people go from, the two-dimensional ideas and turning them into three-dimensional products and how to bring them to market. We'll have a 3D printer, we'll have a CNC router, we'll have a computer lab, everything you need to make that move to build your vision up. So you can find me on Instagram, Amenra, AMENRA 718. Or you can find me via social, Facebook, Alexis Mena. But yeah, also you can find me in these streets. Just walk up to me and shake my hand. I'm always available.
Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we will also have more information within the description of this video. And once again, this is Voices, Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. Yes. And as you can see, Mr. Mena, Alexis, he has a lot of information, a lot of substance. Please give us more comments about what we've discussed today, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Sure.